Hello, hello, hello. It's Trent Knox here with Austin Live and Local. We are going to be getting the show started very, very soon. This is live from the ATX featuring Strenger. Just give us a moment. We'll be right with you. All right, I want to do some housekeeping before we bring Alex onto the show. The live from the ATX podcast or show on the Austin Live and Local channel has been in hiatus for quite some time, almost potentially a year, I believe, since the last episode was aired. And then I think that the importance of bringing this episode on is the fact that a lot of Austinites are currently experiencing hardship, and there is not a guest that I know who is advocating for more Austinites at the ground level than Alex Strenger. I have been following him for about 2 years, I believe, maybe a little bit longer, and sort of his activism as it pertains to um, the Austin area and greater Austin area. He's a man with a plan for sure, and and I think that the way that he's approaching a lot of his ideas is has a great foundation, and he's he's from the East Coast. I believe he's from New York. I'm not sure exactly what borough. I can't remember, but he came from New York, and he now lives here. He's a pedicab driver as well as a political candidate for mayor. And I think that what he has to say, you may disagree with what some of his ideas, but you can understand that he comes from a solid foundational background of his ideas, and he's one of those people that likes to provide evidence and support to why he thinks that what he does is good for the people of Austin, the citizens, and the community. So I highly respect it. Actually, I became aware of Alex via his run alongside or with or against, or however he wants to portray this, with Travis. Um, I'm blanking right now. I don't know why I'm blanking on this right now. But another candidate for mayor that had been a guest of the show. If you go back, you can look at that. Um, oh man, I'm gonna have to say I apologize for blanking on this one, but give me a moment, and then I'll be back on page. Uh, so Travis Duncan, he had been on the show, and we talked about a lot of different politics and some of the stuff that's been going on here in Austin and what can be done better. And I want to get through not only what Austin is dealing with, but in addition, talk about what the globe is dealing with, or the world that we live in. And in our nation. And I think that there are a lot of concerns, and I think that Alex is a voice for the people of Austin, and wants to provide a little bit more value back to Austinites. So we're going to be talking about a lot of different topics, and we'll get into that. This is going to be a video webinar podcast, video podcast, live podcast, which will be available on anchor.fm, both on the Trent Knox profile and the Austin Live and Local podcast. So again, shortly we will have Alex Strenger on. If you have any questions and want to be, at least if you want to have a conversation, we will be having the chat open, and we will be answering your questions as they come in. And feel free to leave a message in the chat, and we'll do a little bit of Q&A if there's time left over to talk about specific questions you may have. So this first couple of minutes, he said he would be available by 2:10. So I think let me see. We're still waiting on it to let him into the room. I might have missed it. I just kind of we're having difficulties getting him into the room. But just give us a moment, and then we'll be up at it. We'll be up and going. Okay. Having an issue getting the link to work on his phone. Still trying to work this out. Be we'll be live shortly. There we go. There we go. Okay, now we add him to the stream, And now we're here. Let me transition the overlay away, and then we can get into the show.
Let's get into the show. What's up, man?
Alex Strenger, nice to first. This is our first podcast together. I know that I actually got to sit in when he was doing his podcast with the Comic Chaos and Brian Kern, and I got to hear some of the things he was talking about on that show, and you know, it was thought provoking, and man, it was really cool to be there.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It means a lot.
So these are some tough times, I guess, for Austinites, and I wanted to get in contact with you. I know you're a super big advocate, and you're in the streets, as they would say. You know, being a voice for the people, a voice for ATX.
Of this disease, and also to not get arrested or face a fine by the city of Austin.
Right.
So, you know, just doing my part for the greater good of society. Glad people are out there appreciating it.
Absolutely. So yeah, maybe you wanna introduce yourself, tell your origin story, kind of get to let people get to know you on the show.
Yeah, let's do that. So I moved here from New York about 6.5 years ago. I drive a pedicab. I also substitute teach and do the pub crawler, like tour buses thing, the like pub crawler party bikes. And I you know, wrote a book, have some creative projects, made a couple rap songs, ran for mayor of Austin a couple years ago, do some jujitsu here and there, you know, so just try to keep myself busy. But, you know, this virus has really screwed me royally on every single economic opportunity that I was doing. You know what I mean? Like this is on every single economic angle, it has just screwed me royally. Like before this happened, I had like 3 different sources of income, and I can't utilize any of those sources because the bars and restaurants are closed. So the pub crawler and the pedicabbing is done until May 1st at the earliest. But they're probably going to keep pushing that back, knowing the city. And I can't substitute teach anymore because all the schools are shut down. And because I'm not a full-time teacher, I don't get paid anything. So it's just, well, guess what, dude? You're kind of shit out of luck, man.
Yeah. And I think that I relate to that a lot. As being a small business owner and being somebody who is watching, and you know, some of the relief aid that's being trickled down, Reaganomics, for us to kind of get enough capital to spend back into our local markets. I think that it's really tough for people like me who are transitioning, and people like you who are transitioning from independent contractor work, employee-based work, into a sustainable working experience. And I think that I don't think that we're alone in that experience. I don't know particularly that I saw you vote. You were reaching out to Steve Adler, and I think Governor Abbott, about the pedicabs, waiving registration and renewal fees.
Yeah, I mentioned like the council member, and I think that they're actually probably going to do that at some point, and they have pushed. They kept like extending the deadlines for all the owners to do that, which is good. It's really important, and I'm glad they're doing that. And it's going to help us out. That's going to help us out tremendously. But we need money. Like, we need money. You know, I know we're going to get the stimulus check. It's just a matter of when. But I've applied for like unemployment with the Workforce Commission, and I've applied multiple times. And then I got rejected the first time because they didn't have my money on record. So I reapplied, sent in my credit card receipt, like payment records, and my letter from my boss, and my 1099 from the pub crawler. So that's about $20,000 of income that now that they have that they don't have. And look, with $20,000 a year, like within a year, it's probably not going to be like, you're not going to get like a ton of like unemployment benefits, but you might get a couple $100 a week when you've lost out on that kind of money. and it's shown that that's the busiest time of the year for you. So, I mean, I think that there's some hope in terms of like getting something, hopefully, right? But I have no idea what's happening. I just said, fuck it. I'm going to just do favor until this is over with. At least I'll have some kind of, I'll be doing something financially while this is going on. And, you know, I also started my own news network while this is happening, because there's so much, you know, misinformation happening with everything going on. So we started the Real American News Network. It's on Instagram at Real American News. You know, you don't need to fact check anything. We are entirely free from all corporate influences, and we get all of our contributions from independent viewership. So if anybody here is listening and would like to support, just please Venmo me at Alexander-Strenger, and you know, you can get some real honest reporting going on.
Yeah, and so that leads into like the first, I guess, topic that I want to discuss with you is the fake versus real news. I think that the conversation, especially with what happened, I guess, 2 nights ago with WrestleMania, people are really trying to
what happened? I didn't even know what
decipher.
happened in WrestleMania.
Well, I mean, there's this discussion about the entertainment and the production behind behind professional wrestling, and talking about how it's so now parallel to our political system in the way that things are operating, where we have a president like Donald Trump constantly calling mainstream or lamestream or
Media.
traditional media fake news.
Yeah, but dude, he's right. I mean, he's right. Like he's 100% correct. I mean, look, I was never like a big like Trump supporter or like right wing Republican or any of that stuff. But when it comes to that, he's 100% correct. Like, look at what they did to Bernie Sanders, and look at how everybody all of a sudden just rallied around Joe Biden. And anytime and everybody criticized Bernie Sanders, but anytime anybody criticized an establishment politician, they called them like hateful and sexist and bigots and all types of stuff. You know, and they're using, even with this coronavirus, they're using footage from Italy and New York City. Like when they were trying to show footage of like a New York City hospital, and they used the exact same footage from a hospital in Italy.
Right.
And they put it on ABC in front of us, acting like we weren't going to know what's going on. And then there's like a British video where there's a British news video that goes into depth on all of this. And it's like I could send it to you afterwards, but like at the 2 minute and 46 seconds mark, the person that they're like operating on, or the person that the patient they're taking care of, isn't even a patient; it's a mannequin. You know, and then people are complaining, "Oh my God, the hospitals are overwhelmed," and they are overwhelmed. I have friends who are EMTs and doctors and all that stuff, right? Like, you know, in New York City and in New Orleans, where it's like really big and it's very serious, and you shouldn't play around with this. But then, how are doctors able to spend time making TikTok videos if it's that serious? Like, how are you like, you know, what are you doing? Like, how bad can it be if you have the time to literally make TikTok videos and put it out on ABC and have ABC replay it for the public? You know, if you're that busy and that overwhelmed, you shouldn't be making anything except for you should be just doing your job.
Absolutely. And I agree with you 100%. And I think that, you know, for instance, I think, and I'm probably going to get some pushback from this or some negative comments about this, is, you know, the mainstream media, whether you want to say it leans to the left or if you want to say that it, you know, it's a radical to the left, they've made up a story, and I don't know if nobody's really covering this anymore, even discussing this, of the journalists or the reporters out there that, you know, just make up stories about how some representative within the task force or within the White House started labeling the coronavirus as the Kung flu, which was just a double down, on the fact that Trump had defined geographically where the coronavirus originated.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it is a. I mean, look, I get the sentiment behind it, because you have a lot of idiots out there who are going to like start attacking people for absolutely no reason, or attacking people because they look Asian, and they're going to confuse them with the country of China. You know, I understand there's a lot of hateful idiots, and you want to like minimize that, right? But no matter what you do, right, or no matter what you say, this is a Chinese virus. Like, this virus came from China, and it spread because the Chinese government not only censored information, but they jailed doctors for exposing the truth about the virus. They encouraged mass gatherings all the way through, I think, like early January, while this disease was spreading. The World Health Organization initially said that humans cannot even be transmitted from human to human contact. You had mayors in Italy telling people to go out and hug Chinese nationals on Chinese New Year during the biggest Chinese New Year celebration of the year. And now Italy was a hotbed for COVID-19. You had de Blasio and people who worked for de Blasio telling people to go to Chinatown and celebrate, and that the contagiousness of this disease is misinformation. And this is on record of people saying it.
Yes.
You have all of that stuff. And, China lied to its own people, and China lied to all of these organizations about the disease. And now hundreds of thousands of people are going to die because of the lie that China told. And now China's also China's not only suppressing the amount of cases that are actually being put out there, like they're not only like lying about the number of cases, they are also sending masks and sending PPE equipment that has the virus on them, and nobody is saying anything. And then Chinese mobile phone companies and Chinese tech companies and Chinese drones are being contracted by certain American cities for surveillance to help surveil the American public. So yeah, this is 100% a Chinese virus, and this is something that I'm gonna stand behind. I might be a little bit more careful about how I phrase some of that stuff on Facebook, because I have actual friends on Facebook, and I don't want to alienate myself from my friends. And then there's also this other fact that you might cause this opposite pro-China backlash by saying that too much, and that's actually really dangerous. You might have a bunch of liberal Democrats that are going to go out there and say, we love China. China's being unfairly treated by this, and there might be a pro-China backlash, and we might wind up more going in that direction of authoritarian Chinese communism. So, the only reason I would chill out with calling it that is because I don't want us to get to the point where it becomes bad to criticize China. And I think that's where we're headed.
Right. Well, I think people, I mean, fortunately enough, I have kind of a direction that I want to go with asking these questions with you. And so we can build a foundation for some of our opinions and where we're coming from with this. And then the audience can search and research this information for themselves.
Yeah.
But my second question, I guess, for you is, how do you differentiate between conspiracy and early developments?
What do you mean?
So I think that maybe the next thing, and I'm going to switch these two subjects around, and this will kind of build a foundation for it, is that a lot of people want to contribute some of this, the virus or whatever you want to do to the advancement of 5G technology.
Oh,
and
I don't know. Okay,
so
this is really people dying from 5G, and this virus is made up, and this is really just the effects of 5G.
Some people have said that.
But we don't even have 5G yet. We don't even fully have 5G in the US. I think what this could be, honestly, is that it could be a way to get 5G, and they could be using, while people are locked down, as a way to construct the 5G towers. But I mean, we're still a lot. Look, I'd understand that perspective, and there could be some truth to that. And I think 5G has a lot of really bad and poisonous effects. And you have FCC professionals and health professionals talking about how it can be extremely dangerous. But we're not bolted down and shut inside of our homes. We're allowed to, even though we're locked down, I'm still allowed to go ride my bike and go fishing and go run and go to the grocery store and go drive around and do stuff. Right. And I haven't seen any construction of 5G towers while this is happening. You mean, have you?
I think that 5G technology is more of a mesh system in which it takes a much smaller node to be installed. Some of the nodes can be the size of a street lamp.
But you also need towers and facilities every couple hundred yards because of 5G.
Well, with the acquisition of Sprint and the merger of T-Mobile in the United States, that's exactly what they're having the conversation about, is that the expansion of 5G is very real. And we in America have the technological advancements to put what may be called 5G out. But obviously Korea is much further advanced uh, by a geographical size in the 5G category. Obviously, we can't take 5G directly to the rural areas as fast as I think a lot of people would like. But anyway, I guess the next thing, and I
Honestly,
wanted to
between
go.
me and you, I don't even know that I want, like, after this is over with, I don't even know how much longer I even want to have a cell phone for, if you really want to know my honest opinion, you know?
Yeah, can you dive into that a little bit more? Like, what is some of the reasoning behind that? What are some of your reasons?
Because the technology that we're taking for granted is just becoming more and more invasive by the minute, you know? Like,
Hmm.
the government right now is listening to our conversation. And that's not like some crazy
Hmm.
conspiracy that if you said that 10, 15 years ago, people would look at you like you were a total lunatic, right? But that's
Hmm.
an established fact. The government's listening. Um, Companies are installing software to make sure people are actually social distancing. Now, it hasn't rolled out to the US because we're still a democratic republic, you know, and we believe in the Constitution, even though I don't know how long that's going to last for. But that
Hmm.
stuff hasn't rolled that into the US, but it's rolled into other countries where people can like track your moves, and tech companies are using apps to make sure you're like social distancing properly, and you know, all that stuff. It's super like 1984 invasiveness. And
Hmm.
I'm getting more and more uncomfortable with all that stuff. So
Yeah.
I think that I made a resolution to myself too that by like mid-March, if I don't get like rich and famous by the time through any of my creative projects within like a year from now, I'm gonna
Hmm.
get off social media completely. I'm just gonna get off of it. There's no point to have it.
So, in the form of communication, how do you think you'll still be able to communicate your messaging?
I don't know. I mean, I'll still maybe I'll still have a phone, but I'm gonna get rid of like my social media platforms and slowly and gradually like um I weed myself off a lot of the technology that's happening. Like I have an old
Hmm.
car, you know, I have an 86 Chevy El Camino. So my car has
Hmm.
no like tracking or any of that stuff.
Right.
So if I wanted to, like I theoretically, if I didn't have my phone, I could just leave and nobody would know where the hell I am at all.
Hmm. So I gotta. I mean, this is, I guess the next thing I listed this as the third thing, depending upon like where your mindset is at. Are you familiar with Project Bluebeam?
Oh, the fake alien invasion with one world government. Yeah,
So that
yeah.
so I would I would actually like to base it more on reality, and that this Project Bluebeam was more directly connected to 5G, and with this severe surveillance I guess surveillance government that you're talking about, with the implementation of what China has implemented, and seeing that in the United States.
I mean, I think the coronavirus is more a Project Bluebeam thing. You have people in the UN actually sitting down and talking about a temporary one world government
Hmm.
while this is happening to create a blueprint for how everyone can handle this. And it's just, well, let's make a crisis and make a pandemic so that this can come to fruition. And I'm going to
Hmm.
tell you my honest opinion that I think that this is not the first time we're going to have this. That these pandemics are going to be a regular occurrence for within the next decade.
Hmm.
I really think so. And it's because this is a way to destroy the society that we have right now and usher in a new world order as a result of it. I really think that this is what's happening. Um,
Hmm.
because look, we're already like this is going to decimate so many small businesses, and this is going to decimate so many people economically. And all
Hmm.
the big companies and the big tech firms and the pharma companies and the big banks and all those, their stocks are probably going to skyrocket as a result of that, right? So if you have
Hmm.
money and you've been smart about this, you should be investing in a lot of the big blue chip companies right now, because everything right now is a total bargain and a total deal. And you should probably
Hmm.
also buy some crypto, maybe buy some Ripple. I was talking to a buddy of mine. I'm not an expert on this, but after
Hmm.
talking to him, I bought like $150 worth of Ripple because I'm just like, look,
Hmm.
um, they're going to be regulated by the Treasury Department. Steve Mnuchin said a lot of good things about them. Um, Ultimately, the dollar is probably going to fail, and you need a digital currency that anybody can use, and Ripple could be that currency. And they also they also do all these having events or whatnot with these currencies, and there's one coming up soon. And every time they do a have, the price always skyrockets. So you know,
Hmm.
why not just see what happens and put some money into that? But I think that what's going to happen is that you're going to have a lot of small businesses, and a lot of everyday average Americans are going to be totally decimated from this, and people are going to lose their homes, and people are going to get evicted. And even if they do a rental forgiveness, unless they like freeze mortgages and taxes, which they're not going to do, but unless they do that, the owners of these buildings who have tenants are going to get evicted anyway. And then who's going to buy up everything? It's going to be some multinational real estate development firm or some Chinese investors that are just going to build a bunch of high-rise tower-like buildings, and it'll ultimately, maybe not this cycle. I think we'll recover from this, but if we have a couple more of these in the next decade, that whole Agenda 21 thing where everybody has to live in the urban core, and they'll create quote unquote affordable housing models, but it's just going to be really, really cramped up in super dense areas for people to live in. They're going to make people more and more desperate in order to live in these types of cramped, shitty living conditions. So I think that this is how I think they're going to implement a lot of that.
Agreed.
Does that make, you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like that's
absolutely.
What
I mean, I think a thing that maybe we should highlight is there's a lot of people in the IDW. I'm sure you're familiar with this, talking about, and that's the intellectual dark web, talking about the big nap, and that we've been on autopilot or droning, with the routines that we've been experiencing since the 1920s, maybe a little bit after the Great Depression, in that we go to work, we get off work, go to sleep, go to work, go to sleep, go to work, go to sleep, and a lot of people don't have the time to contemplate the government or big thought or any sort of diversity in their lifestyle.
Yeah, nobody has any time to think about anything. And people still don't, even though they pretend to. And I think like what's kind of scary is that the radical left is the most vulnerable to being victims of this.
That's what we were talking about before.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about like the neoliberal Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden's Beto, or like those guys, because I don't think those guys are even left. I think those guys are I think most of, like, I think the candidates or the big backers of those guys are right-wing authoritarians who use like social justice and whatnot as like a crutch to hide their authoritarian tendencies. That's what I think a lot of these guys are, right? Like the Bill Gateses and the George Soroses and the Hillary Clintons and like the Michael Bloombergs. Those are authoritarians. That's not left. That's probably more, those guys are actually probably more right wing, to be honest, than like the Donald Trumps and the Pences and the Republican governors. Because I think today's conservatism is becoming more like libertarianism, if you want my honest opinion, than it was 10 or 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Today's conservatism is basically survival of the fittest, strong survive. You get what's yours, and if you can't make it, then too bad, dude. Sucks to be you, bro. There's there's just callousness, like there's just a callous sense of competition. But at least you know what you're getting into, and it's this is your freedom, this is your choice. Nobody cares. Just get your. We just want our production to rise, but there's transparency about that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Whereas like the neoliberals want that, but they only want it for themselves, and they will use like social justice and homelessness and like a plethora of like and like gun control and a plethora of like social issues to create a sense of to just create like disillusionment within America, and just create like a society where people don't want to work harder, don't want to, like, you create a demotivated.
Alex, you got muted. Let me see if I can unmute you. Alex, on your screen there's a microphone. You can unmute. There we go.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So basically, what happens is these people they create disillusionment amongst they'll create disillusionment amongst a lot of people, and most people are going to be like young people. And when you create this disillusionment, people don't think, instead of thinking, hey man, how can I benefit from this, right? Or how can I advance my position in life, and how can I become someone who owns a house, or how can I become someone who has a stock portfolio, or how can I become someone who has hundreds of thousands of dollars, or how can I be a millionaire, how can I accomplish X, Y, and Z? They say, oh, the oppressive hetero-patriarchal capitalist system is preventing you from doing it. And then you don't take advantage of it. And then you create a whole generation of people through this subliminal thought process who don't take advantage of the system that's happening. And then the only people that take advantage of the system just wind up cornering and preying on the people that they pretend like they're helping.
Yeah, I can agree with that, because I think that another way to word it, and maybe you wouldn't agree with this, is that they create the rules but they don't follow them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And at least the conservatives, there are a lot of mainstream conservatives that I like hate, right? But
True.
They at least they're following the rules, because they don't really have very many rules. You know what I mean? Like some of their stuff is a little silly, where it's like maybe some of the social stuff they're still a little backwards on, but like they're actually honestly getting better about that anyway. But
yeah,
that's really it. Or like the fact that they give the oil companies too much of a pass, and their decision makings are decided based on what the oil companies want to do, versus like people's actual property rights and whatnot. I think that's the big criticism I have. But the Democrats do the same thing, but instead of oil companies, it's big tech and the pharma companies and the foreign governments like China that they're selling us out to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot more. I think that being more beholden to the big tech industry is a lot more dangerous than being beholden to big oil, because big tech can destroy the dollar and destroy countries as you know it, because you can consolidate markets and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, everyone has to have a central currency. And when you have a central currency, you centralize power amongst a very small elite group of people. And all that stuff winds up coming true. So it's and then they're smart, because they're using climate change. They're weaponizing climate change too, because they're like, well, shit, you better vote Democrat, because then we're not going to have a planet. But little do we know that you're not going to be on this planet anyway when a group of wealthy technocratic elites get in charge and they use diseases, viruses, and bioweapons to depopulate planet Earth regardless.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to be here anyway.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to switch these around too. I don't know if you've been following this stream of consciousness. Maybe people will call it a conspiracy that Trump wasn't part of the plan, and that with Trump in office, his national the nationalism or moderatism, or however you perceive Trump in your reality, he has decided to kind of focus on dissolving what would be the United Corporations of America, which is kind of what I feel that it's kind of a balance right now. Where he's been caught up is not being the question whether he did things on a timeline that that people would agree with.
With his methodology, I think that he did some things that were good. I think like the partial travel ban from China was good. I think blocking travel from Europe was also extremely important. But dude, you fired your entire pandemic response team like 3 years ago. That's a colossal. That is a colossal fuck up. That's a colossal fuck up.
Well, has there been any oversight?
There could also be a theory. I doubt it, but there could also be a theory that maybe this disease gets put into play as an act of vengeance.
Or there could also be a theory that pandemic panel or room was advocating for an issue like this, and that he saw that there was some dissonance in that group, and didn't feel like they were attuned to to defend the United States of America in the event that there was a pandemic?
I think a lot of the people that Donald Trump has on staff don't seem to care about what is in the best interest of America. Like I know that Dr. Fauci has worked with is a big supporter of Hillary, and he's like a big he's on a lot of Bill Gates's board. He's on a lot of like Bill Gates's boards, and I know he gets a lot of money from the World Health Organization, which is bought up by China, as well as like George Soros. So I don't know that I think that Anthony Fauci is like super intelligent and knows what he's talking about, and you should listen to him in terms of like the efficacy and how much the disease spreads. But when he's saying, hey, man, we got to close businesses for months and months and months, that's bad, dude. And then when Donald Trump says we're opening up by April, you know what that really means? Because we shouldn't reopen by April. This is a very serious pandemic, right? We need to keep this closed for a little bit. But if we start opening by like May 1st, by May, maybe even June, we'll be okay. We'll get through this. I'll get through this. You know, I'll be okay. So I think if we start reopening stuff by May or June and you just start easing the social distancing requirements, I think that things will start getting better. Even though it's not going to fully get back to normal until we either A, have enough immunity, or B, get a vaccine for it. But even with the vaccine, I don't think people should be forced to take it.
Yeah, that plays into you mentioned earlier Bill Gates. And I'm not too sure if you're familiar with the implementation of ID 2020.
Yeah, I mean, I know the gist of it, and it's basically you're giving people a digital ID to help keep track of people, and it's more designed for people in like poor countries and third world areas and homeless people who don't otherwise have an ID or a paper ID. So you're giving them documentation through blockchain technology, which is, I think, what's on paper right now. But it could easily be used to give everybody it could be used for a lot more than that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, they're putting out propaganda video, at least in Asian countries, where this sort of technology is being implemented already. I don't know if that's true or not, because obviously I'm not on the ground level.
But nobody's getting like chipped or anything. We're not there where we're getting like RFID chipped mandatorily. But I went to I was pedicab. People are voluntarily getting RFID chips implanted in them right now.
Yeah, I do understand that to be the case, and I also saw, I saw MSNBC, a video of MSNBC promoting videos of Asian people utilizing RFID chips implanted in their wrist. In tandem with the virtual reality social credit system.
Were they hyping it up like it was a good thing, or were they just kind of reporting on it objectively?
I mean, it was just video footage, basically, video B-roll showcasing the technology.
Well, we already have a social credit system. I mean, we do. There are algorithms on Facebook and Instagram that dictate the visibility of what you post based on what you decide to post. You know what I mean? Like, if you post stuff about how much you like, if you post stuff about how much you're social distancing and how much you're staying at home, and you're posting virtual dates on Zoom and all that stuff, or talk about how much you miss Obama, you're probably going to get a higher algorithm, and you're going to show up higher on the queue than if you post anti-vaccine stuff and conspiracies about Bill Gates or share things from Alex Jones. I mean, like, there's a reason why I don't have more Instagram followers than I do, because I have a better Instagram and a better social media page than probably like 80 to 90% of people out there with tens of thousands of followers. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's a fact. Like, you see my Instagram, right? I have a phenomenal Instagram. You know? Like, I have a and when I was doing my mayor campaign, my Instagram, my social media was fucking fire. It was great. And the only reason nothing was happening is because of the fact that there's an algorithm that's not letting me get to where I deserve to be getting. And then my rap songs are extremely well received, and they're really good rap songs. But if I don't rap about like selling drugs and killing people, or being a drug addict, or sucking dick or something in the club, nobody wants to. It's not going to get priority showing or priority views.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of leads in, I guess, to, well, actually, I want to go back and talk about this a little bit. Do you think that any of this dysphoria is created because of this of CERN's application of some of the hadron collider stuff, and at an atomic level, we're dealing with some sort of dimensional shift or anything like that. I mean, that might be going too deep,
Dude, I
but
have no idea. I honestly have no idea.
that's good.
Yeah,
Then I guess I'll bring
no,
it back.
I
I'll
have no
bring it
idea.
back to earth a little bit more, and this is more directly related to the issue that you're dealing with being a substitute teacher, and the current education system is there, at least in the IDW, they've been talking a lot lately. Eric Weinstein has been talking about multi-level education marketing, and essentially that the current education system that we have that's imposed upon us, even maybe not higher education, you have a choice, but from grade school and before or previous education levels, that unless you spend money, you don't receive a proper education. And then once you get to the higher education level, everything is behind a paywall anyway. So what's the purpose of education at all?
Yeah, you could learn more on YouTube and learn more. I mean, you could learn more on YouTube and at a public library than you ever will in a high school or college classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a fact. Bernie Sanders talks about free college and like free public college. And I
Mm-hmm.
get the sentiment, right? Because student debt is a horrible thing. And when I substitute teach, I tell my students not to take out loans for college if I teach high school, which is mostly
Mm-hmm.
what I teach anyway. But I always go into that. If there's like no lesson plan or if I'm bored or whatever, I'm like, hey, just want to let you guys know, don't take out a loan for college. Here's why. You'll never pay it
Mm-hmm.
back and you'll be broke for the rest of your life, dependent upon people who don't have your best interest at heart. That's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So don't take out those loans. But what I'm saying is that you theoretically could learn more researching material on your own than you could ever in a classroom setting. So I think that, if you really want to reduce the cost of college or get rid of the student debt problem, instead of just saying, hey, everything's free and people have to pay more taxes as a result of compensating for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Businesses should just waive the requirements of having a college degree and just hire you based on you being able to pass an aptitude test and actually knowing what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I theoretically could look, man, I could do a better job. Like I have a BA in psych, right? But I could be just as good of a therapist as somebody with a master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I could be just as good as helping somebody get through their problems as someone with a master's degree. A
Mm-hmm.
barber or a hairstylist or a personal trainer could be just as good. When I used to be a personal trainer and I served kind of as a surrogate therapist to a lot of clients because they would tell me a whole bunch of shit that they wouldn't tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I wanted to be a school teacher. Like when I first moved here, I wanted to teach like elementary school, and it didn't work out probably because of the book I wrote. But nobody ever told me why or whatnot, right? But I could have done a better job. Like I'll put it to you this way. I don't think I need to spend 4 years in a university racking up tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to get a master's in order to teach a 5-year-old how to read and write his name.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like I that's not necessary. And that's people who think that way are just brainwashed. And even when it comes to giving financial advice, I could give I don't think I need to go to school for 4 to 6 years to help a professional athlete manage their money and not go broke, right? But you have people who have like master's degrees, and granted, they probably know a lot more, and I would rather ask them financial questions than myself financial questions. But if like somebody who had a lot of money was like, hey, I need to create an investment account for what I'm doing, I probably could help somebody create an investment account right now, just based on the basic knowledge that I have about how the financial system works. All right. And you have, especially if somebody has a lot of money. Oh, you have a ton of money. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to put like a third of your money in like high dividend paying high performance mutual funds. And you're going to put another, you're going to put another like 40%. You're going to put another 40% of your money in big companies that pay high dividend in big companies, right? And then you're going to put another like 20% of your money in real estate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There you go. That's how we solve it.
Mhm.
There you go. There you go. You don't need an advanced college degree to tell somebody that, right?
No, you don't. I think that, and especially since college degrees are to a certain extent not um, they're not appreciated or they're not accepted as much as these certificates that someone would get from technical training on a particular
Fact. And
subject matter.
also it's an well established fact that that China has infiltrated a lot of our education systems to demoralize young people into hating the American public.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like China's infiltrated the American educational system to steal intellectual property, to get scientific secrets, to pay professors
But when you say
to make weapons in their own laboratories using through their facilities, which is what happened with that Harvard scientist. That's kind of how the coronavirus even started, because this guy named Charles Lieber was paid off by China to set up a research lab in near Wuhan, and
hmm
they used all of the stuff. All of his gatherings were still being used from Harvard, and they'll send nationals and exchange students to steal data and steal ideas from professors.
hmm
So I mean,
but it's it should be noted as well that China is just by analytics the country that contributes most to intellectual theft,
yeah,
whereas there are a ton of other countries that also have um, for the better for the sake of a better less term governments or authorities that are attempting to bring down the United States as a country. It's
yeah.
China just has to put the most money into it.
I think China's the only country that is capable of actually exercising that threat and doing it.
Hmm.
Look at what's happening right now. This is a serious threat to the sanctity of the U.S. Like this is very bad. And
Hmm.
honestly, I think that we got a president is who has definitely fucked up a lot in the past. And there's lots of I was not feeling Trump about, and especially when it comes to the environment, it's very scary. Like his approach to a lot of that stuff. But
Hmm.
we got a president who loves America, and right now that's what we need. Like we need a president and a leader who loves America.
Hmm.
You know, like there's no questions about that. We need someone who's going to keep the economy and business going at all costs, because if not, then we're not going to be able to live our comfortable suburban lives anymore. That Agenda 2030 stuff is going to happen, and you got to avoid that as much as possible. Remember, it was called Agenda 21 before Trump got elected.
Hmm.
Do you remember that? Agenda 2030 was once Agenda 21, and they pushed it back to 2030 because of Donald Trump.
Hmm.
So
I,
it's one of those things. This virus has made me a reluctant, yet vocal Trump supporter as a result of this.
right, and I think I mean, we're coming up on an hour. I don't know how much time you have to continue talking about this, but I think I had one last subject that I wanted to talk about, and it really does bring it back to Austin in a way, because some moves have been made over time to shift the way that the U.S. government is operated and has established the Central Texas area as a predominant satellite of the U.S. government. And I think the last thing I want to talk about was Trump talks about we're at war with an invisible enemy, and I think we both know that there is somebody that there is something or somebody that we are fighting, whether it's an idea or it's a country. And
No, it's an
with
entity. It's a cabal, and it's a cabal of small interest groups
mhm,
that want to destroy the United States and destroy what we're founded on and get rid of our national sovereignty. And if you devalue the dollar and you create a global currency, that's a start. Because then the president and the Fed and all these organizations have no power, and then you have to re-centralize who's in power. And
mhm,
also, when you get rid of the dollar and you create a digital currency, people have less mobility and less freedoms. and everything
Mhm.
becomes tracked. So that's the invisible enemy.
Yeah, and I guess the last question was, what does our military have? How infiltrated is the military? I know personally from my experience that I don't agree with a lot of the way that the military is operated, and I think that there is definitely brainwashing that happens in boot camp, AOI, AOTC, and as someone is introduced into a system that is designed to protect the special interests of corporations, uh, and I see people online being truth warriors, or people who follow the Alex Jones show, people who follow the Sam Tripoli show, people who
Dude, I got a chance
follow.
to perform with Sam Tripoli.
That's amazing.
Did you know that I got a chance to open up for him with my rap songs?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I opened up for Sam and Eddie with Tinfoil Hat Comedy because I
Oh,
made
okay.
some rap songs about conspiracy. I made a rap song. I made a super woke rap song about all the conspiracies, just like enrolled into one. I made a song about Jeffrey Epstein.
Mm. I didn't
Uh,
know that you opened up for them. I
I
I
have opened
wanted
up.
to attend, but I did not get the chance to go.
I opened up for them in Austin. I opened up again for them in Dallas. And they wanted me to go to Oklahoma the next day, but just travel stuff and all the logistics kind of got fucked with a little bit, so it didn't really work out the way I would have liked to. Because
Mhm.
I was with a buddy and he had to drive back, and I couldn't find a car to rent. And plus, I'm not gonna lie, I was fucking exhausted because we got super fucked up afterwards, and I was like, holy
Mhm.
shit, how am I gonna like? I have a whole new respect for musicians and performers being able to do this shit back to back to back, being on the road. It was no joke, dude. It was fucking hard.
Mhm.
Um, but I have opened up for them, and they put me in their stories sometimes. Like Tinfoil Hat puts me in their stories. Like when I play my rap songs and stuff like that, they'll share my stories sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. Um, but yeah, I think what do you think about the military, and I see videos of large amounts of the military industrial complex being moved to California, being moved to New York, and the execution of whether that's the U.S. Army, Marines, Navy,
I don't
or
know.
Air Force.
I was
Like,
never in the military at all, so I don't really know as much about it as I would like. I know that I had friends
mhm,
who were in Iraq and in Afghanistan and whatnot, and they were always like basically every time they were about to get to like an important target that they had to get that
mhm,
they were trying to hit, they would always be rerouted away from that. It was like almost like they didn't want that person to die. They just wanted to keep us in there. Like they
mhm,
were chasing ghosts. Like I've heard stories like that a lot of veterans would be really close to getting what they wanted, and then they'd be ordered to just go do something else when they were like really close to getting what they were supposed to get. You know what I mean?
mhm,
And it was just
mhm,
literally designed to keep us there and
mhm.
create instability. I know that John Kerry has gone on record talking about the need to arm ISIS, and there was a phone call recorded from like part of the problem clips about that. And I'm just like,
Mhm.
dude, these are these entities and these people that are trying to arm ISIS are the same people that are telling you that you need to stay home. So it's like the whole thing with the media. It's like the boy who cried wolf. You know, like you're only
Mhm.
gonna believe all this shit so many times before you just like tune out and just see through the bullshit.
Yeah, I think that the tough part is, the people who say, "Don't worry, don't talk about it," this, that, and the third, and then the other end of the spectrum that people are saying, like, be informed, be aware, be in tune, be a part of the human experience, and this experience that we're all. I
This
think
is
I
not a
think
human
most of us.
experience, though. This is a dehuman. When people are like, "Oh yeah, go get on Zoom and go bring people together," this is not how to bring people together. Um,
Mhm,
this is a dehumanizing experience. When you have to stay at home and you're not interacting with other humans, you are becoming less of a human.
mhm.
This is a
I mean,
dehumanizing experience right now.
for
And
my experience, prior to all the implementations of the rules and the regulations and whatnot, I'd flown to LA, and I was pursuing a career in esports. And then I went to Houston, and then after the Houston experience, it was like it was it was it was a lockdown. It was the opportunity for doing in-person networking and building, a real human connection had been uh, disconnected.
it's gonna come back though, and it's gonna come back stronger.
Hmm.
They can't. And plus, here's the thing too, man. Like Well, I think that there are a lot of globalist entities that want to destroy the country, and especially they want to destroy it during this election, because a Biden presidency means this new world order stuff happens a lot faster. That we all know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I even think with the Bernie presidency, the Bernie presidency might slow it down also, because I think that Bernie actually has good ideas and he's well intentioned. The problem is that his supporters are all victims.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Or a lot of them are. There's some that are not, right? Like I know some that are like fucking awesome people, and they're like, they have the their attitudes are like similar to you and me, and they are probably also a lot smarter than I am and could, easily out debate me in a policy debate about what's best for the country and whatnot, right? And those are obviously the outliers. And these are the people that you honestly want in government. So if those people said, hey, we're all running for office, I'd be like, yeah, fuck yeah, I hope you get in. I would love for those people to get in. But the majority, the large majority, are just are just people who are just disenfranchised. Are disenfranchised people who think that if you're rich, you hate poor people, or if you're middle class, you hate poor people, and they just don't understand why they like who they like, why they like their guy, and they're very easy to fall into this echo chamber of what they hear on mainstream media and the internet and whatnot. But what I was gonna say is that not all of our city councils like that, right? Like I know that like Jimmy Flanagan and Jimmy Flanagan especially, that guy loves to go out and get drunk and get turned up like on Rain and hit up all the gay clubs and all that. And I know for a fact that this guy doesn't want the bars to close. He wants shit to get back to normal. He doesn't want to like stay inside, not getting strange dick and whatnot from Rain, That guy wants to reopen shit. So I feel like if you talk to somebody like a Jimmy Flanagan or a Greg Casar, who's like still in his 20s and he wants to go out. I've seen him at Halcyon before and seen him downtown. You want these guys want to go out and get drunk and have a good time. They're not trying to like stay cooped up in their house when they're young and they're just city council members. Like they want to fix stuff. So try to talk to them and reach out and see what's going on and what they're doing. I think is a way to just counteract just the yelling and the divisiveness, because I think there are people out there who are still doing their best. And I'm going to send an email to Jimmy and just be like, hey, what's going on? This is what happened with my unemployment. How can I fix this? What can I do? Also, please help me please just let me know what we could do about the bar, like reopening the bars. Like you're worried about hospitals. Every single school in Austin is closed. Why can't we use the schools to create makeshift hospitals or the stadiums that are and the event centers that are being unused? Why, what if we opened up the bars starting May 1st, but we just kept the hotels closed until July? Like we could do that, right? Like there are ways that we can do this. And so it's interesting to see the approach. If they're like, well, it's not fair to their business. I'm like, what about our business? You didn't give a shit about us.
Right.
So then you see the cover, and the cover really means we only care about large businesses and not smaller ones. And if that's the case, well, fuck it. You're being selfish too. Don't call me selfish because I want to go out and go to work, because you're being selfish by not sacrificing your needs for the greater good.
Yeah.
So
I 100% agree with that.
So then I think that hopefully we'll get back to. I think we're gonna get back to work probably by June. I think June's probably the goal where everyone's gonna start getting back to work. I think that in like New York and the coastal areas, they're gonna get back to work a little sooner because they already had their big wave. And when everybody gets a big wave, there's enough immunity where people can just go back because they're like, oh, we already got this disease anyway. We're recovered.
I think from an individual politician's perspective, they can only digest so much at the level of power that they have, and then it depends what agencies they're most interested in. And I don't necessarily know that the mayor or the lieutenant general governor or the governor are particularly concerned about Texas Workforce Commission or the capital rural areas.
No, they don't care, but they do care about the bars in Austin, because the bars in Austin make a significant amount of are a big reason why Texas is where it's at. Like the bars in the oil industry are huge, and the hotel industry are extremely powerful economic entities here. So you don't want to keep the bars closed. And like Austin's like the bars and the party scene in Austin is like the big reason why people go to Austin in the first place.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like you go to Austin to party. So they want economic activity to resume, right? Like they want the shit to get back to normal. They want money in their pockets, But
I think unironically, at least this sentiment doesn't reach to where I live. I live in Georgetown. this sentiment doesn't reach up this way, but the TABC, I feel like government is looking to deregulate TABC. So there will be a clearer path to opening up those bars, because you can already see by the deregulation of delivery of alcohol.
It's keeping them afloat.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
It's keeping them afloat, and it's good. But it's like this would not happen if we had a Democratic governor, I don't think. And then here's another thing too, man. This is what I think I got two more things I want to talk about, right? So I want to talk about like Bill Gates. And Bill Gates, so once he left Microsoft, he started buying up and acquiring large equities and large amounts of shares in the pharmaceutical industry. Right? And Bill Gates also has a lot of stake in our media. We know that, right? And he has a lot of influence in terms of what he's like. He's like, I've been talking to governments all over the world, right? And Bill Gates knows a lot about what's going on. He has a lot of input, and he has a lot of say in terms of what gets done throughout the world from a policy standpoint. And that's a fact, and the fact that Donald Trump is letting the states make their own decision actually is a big testament to him, because that's literally the least authoritarian thing you could do. When everyone was worried about this guy being an authoritarian, like that's literally the opposite of authoritarianism, is letting the states do what they want to do about it, handling it how they want to handle it.
Right.
Literally like the opposite of authoritarianism. But then meanwhile, you have these quote unquote liberals are like calling the cops on people for having gatherings at their houses. And like, that is Nazi. That is the most Nazi Germany shit you could do. It's like disgusting, dude. But back to what I was saying, Bill Gates owns large amounts of equities in the pharmaceutical industry, and we all know that, right? And then everything that you hear on like corporate media, none of it is designed to make you feel good. Do you notice that? It's always designed to make you feel fearful and anxious, right? And they're telling you not to see people. They're telling couples not to conceive. They're telling they're basically saying social distancing, and they're telling you to avoid other humans. And when you avoid humans for too long and you stay home in your house for too long, your mental health will deteriorate. And when your mental health deteriorates, what do you need?
What? I'm sorry. You
When your
need
mental
medication.
health, yeah, you need medication, right? And who benefits from you needing medication?
Bill Gates.
Big Pharma. But yeah, Bill Gates. Yeah, Big Pharma benefits. And also the people who own large amounts of equities and stakes in Big Pharma, right? So the more you listen to like corporate news media, and the more you get like brainwashed by them, because you should listen to it to a point. You should still listen to it and understand, like, you shouldn't be having large gatherings and going to house parties and doing this stuff, or going to bars or concerts or going to church right now. Like, you're an idiot if you do that, right? Like that's I'm not telling people to do it. You should not do that. It's a horrible idea. But if you spend too much time in your house cooped up listening to corporate media, you're going to develop some serious mental illnesses or some real mental issues that you're going to need, that are probably going to be alleviated through pharmaceutical substances, right? And you're putting money in Bill Gates' pocket. The more you watch corporate news media, and the more depressed and anxious you get, which you will, because there's nothing good on corporate media right now, as you can see. You're gonna either experience or it's gonna add to like the mental and emotional problems that you have. And then the people who own large stakes in the pharmaco industry and the pharmaco industry themselves are gonna make lots of money off of your suffering. So that's a takeaway that nobody's even talking about. And there's something else I wanted to talk about too. And about Donald Trump too. And everyone's talking about how Donald Trump really bungled this response, and his administration's negligence kind of causes pandemic. And there is some truth to that, because they had playbooks and all that stuff about how to deal with the pandemic and what to do and how to kind of regulate all that stuff. But here's why it's not fully Trump's fault, right? Or why Trump is getting blamed too much. And so we know about China, the deliberate negligence of the Chinese government and the authoritarian measures taken by China are the reason why this disease is even in effect to begin with. And then this virus has decimated Italy. It's decimating the UK. It's decimating Spain. There are a lot of European countries. It's going to fucking destroy Australia. A lot of countries are getting fucked as a result of this virus. And and nobody is casting any blame on the prime ministers or the leadership. When a larger portion of them, from a percentage standpoint, they have a higher percentage of people who are infected and who die from this disease than the United States will, right? There are countries who are going to literally really get destroyed from this virus, and none of their leaders are being held accountable for it at all.
I think this is case in point. You talked about the victim mentality.
Yeah, but hold
So
on.
basically,
Let me finish. Though. Let me finish.
sure, sure,
Sorry, I
sure.
didn't mean to interrupt, but and then also, you had a mayor in Italy who talked about sending police officers with flamethrowers to bust gatherings.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody batted an eyelash. Vox wrote about it like it was funny. But it wasn't funny. He was serious. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
I was talking about giving flamethrowers to cops when I was running for mayor, and it was obviously like a troll and a joke, right? And
Mm-hmm.
this guy was doing it for real, and nobody bats an eyelash. Could you imagine what happened if Donald Trump said that he wanted to send police officers with flamethrowers to enforce quarantining?
I mean, what? Oh
Could you
man.
imagine that? Just imagine that, man. What kind of uproar it would be. That's why it's so hypocritical. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
you got a president who's letting the states make their own decisions, right? Who
Mm-hmm.
wants to get the country back to work within a reasonable time frame. Who's trying to offer up an optimistic forecast about how we're going to get through this. And then people are criticizing him for doing that and calling him a fascist when you have an Italian leaders, right? Leaders in Italy, government leaders in Italy, talking about giving cops flamethrowers to disrupt gatherings, and nobody's saying anything. It's the hypocrisy is mind-boggling. And then when you talk about the U.S. having the highest number of COVID cases, guess which state in the United States has more than half of those cases?
New York.
New York. Who's the governor?
Cuomo.
Andrew Cuomo.
Cuomo.
Nobody's saying anything bad about him. Your state has half of the cases in the entire country. What did you do to help minimize the spread in your state?
Mm-hmm.
You knew about this stuff too. It didn't become an epidemic before Italy or before any of these European countries. Most of these cases are in your state. What did you do to stop it? You didn't do anything. But all of a sudden, you're looked at as you're being looked at like you're a hero and you're a model leader when half the cases are in your state and nobody's even acknowledging that or even talking about that. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just it's like anybody with a brain understands that Trump is just getting he's getting a really bad rap as a result of this. And this is the truth. And I'm speaking out about this. And I know that there are going to be people who probably like me when I was running for mayor and voted for me and were my friends and whatnot. And they might not be my friends anymore because I'm really speaking out about this. And I'm starting to see a lot of the bullshit that's going on with this. And I'm going to be very vocal about it. This virus is the new 9/11.
Yeah, I think the important part to tell you, to reassure what you're saying, is that, it's not like you're advocating for no more fun. I definitely don't think that's the case. But there are these issues of people talking about the victim mentality. Are people feeling the victim mentality and making excuses for their leadership and authority, and then the leadership and authority passing the blame onto oh, I didn't have enough, I didn't do this, or they said this, or he said, she said behavior.
Yeah, it's bad. And you've also seen videos about news reporters and comedians saying that we need to crash the economy to get rid of Trump, and then all of a sudden the economy's crashing in an election year. It just seems like a little too coincidental,
Yeah, it does think
and the crisis also started really exacerbating itself right when Joe Biden kind of all but secured the nomination, right?
Mhm.
The crisis wasn't that big, or it wasn't as magnified up until Joe Biden secured this nomination. Remember, it was
Mhm.
just a foreign thing. And then all of a sudden, Joe Biden is pretty much the nominee, barring some
Mhm.
miracle. And, oh, man, now we got a real crisis on our hand. This economy is about to shut down. But people were barely talking about it. All of a sudden, right when Joe Biden gets the nomination, now this is a big issue. And then right before Super Tuesday, 3 or 4 different candidates dropped out at the same time and endorsed Joe Biden. It's all of
Mhm.
this seems very tricky, and I think that this has to do with I'm not saying that it was caused to get rid of Trump, but I think that this is being used and weaponized as a way to get rid of Trump, and they're seeing that. And it's not just enough to get rid of Trump. It's about putting in a Manchurian candidate. And Bernie Sanders would not be a Manchurian candidate. That's why this was not like, this wasn't super overhyped. But now you got a Manchurian candidate as the Democratic frontrunner, who's not even campaigning, who's barely even anywhere to be seen.
True.
And can't even answer questions about how he's going to help solve and address the crisis. There is a lot of very bad, nefarious stuff going on. And I think that we have no choice.
Do you think that it's potentially that at those higher socioeconomic classes, they're so bored that they have to create a bigger, badder boogeyman?
No, I think that the people in these classes want to create one world government and consolidate power amongst themselves. And there are different fractions and different groups and different societies that want the power. And the reason that we haven't achieved that one world government yet is because these different organizations are not able to agree with themselves.
Absolutely. So I think I want to give you more opportunity to talk about.
But dude, imagine how bad these lockdown procedures would be if we didn't have guns. Like, imagine how much more our rights would be infringed upon. Imagine that, dude. It's like in China, they bolt the door shut. In Italy, you need permission from police to go anywhere. Like, we have a large population of people with automatic weapons and semi-automatic weapons. And they're already angry. Like, and our government knows that. And we shouldn't revolt or do anything like that, right? I'm not advocating for that. I think it's a horrible idea, and that would destroy the U.S. as well. But they also know that that's a real threat. And that's why these stay-at-home orders, they're issuing them, but they're not very well enforced, if you haven't realized that already.
Absolutely. But I think that, there's the concern that and God hope it doesn't happen, that the Democratic Party takes over the presidency and they enforce martial law.
Well, they're not going to enforce martial law right away. They'll try to pass gun control legislation first. That's what they're going to do. There's going to be like strict gun control before they try to do any kind of martial law.
Well, I think, like I said, Austin, a lot of the military industrial complex has been moved to Austin, at least the intelligence community within the military.
Yeah, that's true. Like Camp Mabry and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that, to sum this all up, what do you think Austinites should do to kind of keep a good perspective? I mean, obviously the mainstream media is scripting. They call it scripting on Twitch, or they call it a couple different things on different platforms. The narrative of their content. If you think back to the beginning of these of the Democratic campaigns, like the mainstream media put all the debates behind a significant paywall, and it almost seemed as though it was all staged. Some videos you saw Warren wearing this shirt, and you saw her wearing a different shirt in another video, and who knows how live it is. I'm an advocate of on record, on live, online. I'm all about that.
I don't know, man. I think that it's very obvious who she is and who she speaks for when she refused to endorse Bernie Sanders. Yeah. She never even endorsed him at all. She actually never gave an endorsement. And then people were saying, "Oh yeah, you don't owe," and everyone would say, "Oh yeah, you don't owe Bernie anything, Liz. You be yourself and be your own woman." But then people are angry at Bernie for staying in the race. I'm like, well, where's the hypocrisy in that, dude? Come on.
Well, I was really shocked that that Tulsi Gabbard didn't endorse.
She tried to.
Bernie
Bernie rejected her endorsement. I heard, yeah. Sanders actually rejected that endorsement, so that's why.
So, what would be the reason to endorse Joe Biden? There had to have been some money exchanged.
Probably, but I think maybe she just has to endorse somebody, and she's still in the party and still a Democrat, so she's just like, well, I'm endorsing Joe.
Right. I mean, that's where our system is fucked. Is that that they make these kind of that's where I'm lost. I cannot just keel over to idiocracy. That's just not what I stand by. For me, there has to be reason and purpose behind things. I mean, obviously for fun, we can all just do whatever. But in all serious nature, I don't think that, you or I should go without a meal at any point in time, or without the ability to communicate, or without the ability to educate ourselves. Those systems need to stay kind of established and going.
Dude, I fully agree with you, man.
And I think that, these people who are just endorse random ass people that are looking to bring those systems down, it just baffles me why we're even having a conversation about that.
Dude, remember when everybody endorsed Beto O'Rourke? Remember when
Right.
everybody used to love Beto, and Beto
Dude,
was
not
like
me.
anti-establishment and punk rock, and this, I'm like, dude, you are the fakest punk rocker ever. You're like, yeah, man, you're so anti-establishment, you endorse Joe Biden.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. And you know what? The experience for me that Beto O'Rourke kind of went sour on me is on 4th of July, man. On the Day of Independence, he goes on to Willie Nelson's picnic, and does a speech about how Mexico should uprise against the United States of America, and
When he
how
said that,
they should.
I did not see that at all. But that's fucking
He was
crazy.
just advocating for so much about undocumented people coming into the United States, and not abiding by uh the nation's rules or regulations, and that the Mexican people should revolt against the Texas establishment. It was just a bunch of very frustrating things to hear on 4th of July of all days, and with someone like Willie Nelson. I mean, obviously Willie Nelson, for whatever for whatever he believes in. It is
Well,
what
the
it is.
IRS seized like a whole bunch of his shit too. So I mean, I don't think Willie Nelson really cares.
True.
I don't think Willie gives a shit at all. My 2 cents.
Yeah, for at least for the mainstream government, that makes sense. He may have some resentment, um, and I can definitely understand that, especially with all the policy changes towards psilocybin, THC, narcotics, and Oakland's basically legalized everything.
Yeah, I mean that's a good thing. I think that's what we should do.
Yeah, I think that Austin is behind on that. I think Austin is
Yeah,
definitely behind on that.
it's fine. If we're behind, if we get too caught up ahead, it'll be even more gentrified than it already is.
That's true, because that's what I saw that happening in Denver.
Yeah,
Uh,
we'd be
yeah.
way more gentrified than. Me and my girl went there for our anniversary. Denver's
Mhm.
kind of a shithole, dude. Boulder was
Yeah,
great
it
though.
is.
Boulder was amazing, but Denver was a shithole.
Yeah.
But I think it's better to keep it the way it is, and then the cops just don't arrest you for it. They're just like, yeah, it's illegal,
Right.
but only. I think that's that way to do it. The gentrification stuff that happens.
Yeah. Well, before I lose you, Alex.
Or you just federally make everything legal, which I think I support as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But Alex, we're losing connection with you. Do you want to say? Do you want to promote your channels, promote your show, Real American News, and then
So if you want, go
let
check
you
us
go.
out on Instagram, Real American News Network. It's a for fun fake news program. It's kind of like SNL. It's kind of like SNL meets like Alex Jones sort of thing, and it's a good time. We're having a lot of fun doing it. We're abiding by all social distancing protocols, of course. Really trying to stop the spread and flatten the curve. Tell you guys what's really going on right now. But yeah, we're on Instagram at Real American News Network. We're going to have a Twitter page soon, so I don't know if you could plug that here, but Twitter's going to be Real American News Network, and then our YouTube channel is Real American News Network. So all of those, Real American News Network, look at it on every social media. And to keep everything going, just send your support. Venmo me at Alexander-Strenger. So Alexander-Strenger is pretty much the Venmo, and then we pay all our staff through those payments, and that's how we keep everything going.
Great. And are you going to be running for mayor again?
Dude, I don't know. I mean, that's another couple years, but depending on how things go, I might run for council, but we'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens. The district I'm in is up for election right now, so we will see. It's something I'm definitely thinking about. It's really, to be honest, not something I want to do. You know what I mean? Like I do not want to be a politician or run for public office or do any of that stuff. The only way and reason I will actually follow through with this is if I really feel like my rights and my ability to make a living are being severely infringed by what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I ran at first, honestly. So unless I feel like I'm being threatened by what the system is bringing me,
yeah,
I'm not going to run. So it really depends on how threatened I feel based on what's happening will determine whether or not I decide to run.
Well, yeah, I hope that you make that decision.
Does that make sense? Like I don't want to run just because I feel like I should run. I want to run unless there's meaning and purpose behind it. So we'll see what happens. Then I'll make a decision.
Absolutely. And I hope that, in the event that you do run, I'd like to, have some other candidates or yourself and host a panel here on Austin Live and Local to help Austinites kind of reason or sift through some of the policies that they're interested in. But once again, thank you, Alex Strenger, for coming on the show. I hope to have you on very soon.
Sounds good, man. It was a pleasure. All right. Later.
All right. Bye. And that was Alex Strenger. He's a outspoken individual who has a lot of a grasp on a lot of different subject matters, and he's able to communicate those ideas, and I really appreciate him for coming on the show, and thank you guys for tuning in. Once again, you can listen to this podcast on anchor.fm/ALL512 or anchor.fm/Trent Knox. Have a wonderful evening.